Hello and welcome into the Touchdown NFL podcast. I'm here today with Taib, just the two of us. Thomas can't be with us today, but we got the right person on, I feel, considering that the Lions went ahead and won that game yesterday. But obviously, we're here to discuss what we've seen so far on Wildcard weekend. Obviously, the weather playing havoc. We're going to be talking as the Bills Steelers kicks off. We're recording this at 9 o'clock on Monday, so there's about 30 minutes, 20 minutes now away from kickoff in that game. And obviously, then we've got the Eagles versus Bucks game. But yeah, like I say, we'll review what we've seen in the past four games over these last few days. So it's obviously Taib really been the pinnacle of it, really. But we'll get into all that. But first of all, mate, how are you outside
I'm
of the
good.
football?
I'm good. Outside of the football, do you know what it is? It's been strange because like my whole weekend's been like football, like just being zoned in on it. Even
Mm,
though like I found it difficult to watch the three games beforehand because like I don't know why I was like it's strange like because again it's new. Like the Lions don't play playoff games a lot and they haven't played a playoff game at home in a long time. So it's weird to like normally you can kind of just be a fan and then take it all in and
yeah.
like whoever's playing, if your team's not involved, it's kind of easy. Oh, let's just watch.
Mm,
Where it feels so much more different when like your team's involved because like suddenly like that becomes the be all and end all. Like I remember saying like some of the guys in like the Lions chat were in. Like we're like, oh, we'll watch the Packers Cowboys. I'm like, listen, like, Cowboys could win by 100, Packers could win by 100. Really don't care. Like it doesn't like doesn't affect this game. Do you know what I mean? Like none of that's going to kind of affect this game. So like it's been a strange weekend. I feel like I've lived it like more than the 48 hours it probably has been.
yeah, I bet.
Um, but just a bizarre weekend. I think overall for the NFL. But like yeah, like I'm starting to feel a little bit tired. Not gonna lie.
Mm.
Like 9 o'clock on a Monday. Like I'm running on 4 hours sleep. But wouldn't have traded the 4 hours sleep. Like
No, of course not. Of course not. Um, but yeah, no, we'll get into all the deep dive on the Lions game against the Rams, as well as all the others. We're going to do away with the regular format. Obviously, there's just the two of us on here today. We've only got four games to discuss, so we're just going to discuss them all, a couple more in more detail. We're still going to give our means, and then we're going to look at what we think might happen tonight with the games that'll be kicking off, and then obviously happening later on. And then we're going to get out of here. So I'll kick us off, mate, because obviously we'll save the Lions Rams chat and we'll get one out of the way early. I just want to talk about the Texans. I've been on the Texans all year. Right from the get-go, I thought they'd be better than expected, was the way I put it, which, it's kind of making my good take almost like an undertake now because they've just gone and exceeded all expectations. We talked obviously multiple times throughout the season about how good this Browns defense is, and the Texans and CJ Stroud just absolutely handled them. Obviously, the Texans defense obviously came to play as well, scoring two touchdowns. And Stroud was amazing whilst playing within himself. I thought, he didn't actually throw the ball that many times. Didn't need to. Nico Collins, his star is rising all the time. So after a few barren years in Houston, in a way, they've gone from nobodies to being on the cusp of being very, very good in what feels like no time at all. This year obviously has been excellent, and then they laid the foundations of it maybe over the last year or two. But we said this about the Jags, so we need to not get ahead of ourselves too much. But I just wanted to continue to shout out the Texans in the way that the arrow is still pointing up in a big, big way. My question to you is in something that's been popping around the internet and Twitter and things like that over the past day or so. But CJ Stroud, he already seems to be a star, but where does he kind of slot into the hierarchy of quarterbacks for you? Whether that be you want to put him in a top 5 or top 10 or whatever, or whether you want to talk about like a tier system, it's kind of whichever way you want to do it. But where's it kind of slot in for you right now?
well, I think like in terms of if you did it like as tiers, you've probably got Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, Lamar Jackson are probably the four that you've got in that kind of
You're not
tier
putting Burrow
one.
in there, are you not?
I suppose the thing is, it's like, what have you done for me lately type of thing. Burrow is in there. It's just obviously he hasn't played this season really, but Burrow would be in there, so
Sure.
he'd be the five. And I
Mm-hmm.
think to be fair, irrespective of who you can't really argue with those five. I think like those guys are going to be kind of the names that we talk about in this league for the next 10 years, pretty much.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And a lot of them are going to be playing each other. Pretty much all of them. I think I've just said the five. They're all in the same conference, so they're going to be playing each other for a long time in big games. I think CJ Stroud right now is in that kind of tier two bucket, which I always feel like sometimes like your Dak Prescott's, Matthew Stafford's, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, those types of people that are perennial tier 2 guys, very good quarterbacks. They all have kind of different strengths, but they also have different flaws as well.
Mhm.
I think CJ Stroud has put himself in there because of just how much poise he's got. I think that's the one thing with young quarterbacks. Like you see it a lot with like not to pick up, but like Zach Wilson, for example, when like trouble
0
starts
points.
brewing like when trouble starts brewing in the pocket, like he becomes panicky. Like Baker Mayfield was a bit like that early in his career. In Cleveland in his first year with Freddie Kitchen. Like I think some quarterbacks, that's probably the big like kind of tool that they don't have in their toolbox. I think with Stroud,
They get the happy feet, don't they?
yeah, with Stroud, like even early in that game on Saturday, I think it was a play to Collins. I think my memory's kind of all over the place, but this was in the first half. And he took a massive shot on the release, like he got hit right in the middle. Free rush out come through for Cleveland, but he was able to hang in and still deliver the ball. I think that's the one thing with him is like he doesn't seem afraid of being in there and kind of
Mhm.
taking the hits or being aware of kind of like even if I throw this ball on time, I'm probably going to get clobbered. I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what he's like. He's got so much poise. Like he's gonna know. Like when you play for Ohio State, and this is why I don't believe like the thing about Ohio State never gives good quarterbacks. You got a good quarterback. You got a good quarterback. It doesn't really matter if you go to Wyoming like Josh Allen did or Ohio
Yeah.
State you know what I
Yeah, yeah.
mean. So that's kind of by the wayside. But I always feel like you're gonna understand probably a higher level of offense because you're playing Big Ten football, which along with the SEC is probably the highest level of conference football you're going to get in college football.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I think Stroud's kind of base of like his X's and O's and understanding how an offense and understand how to go through reads and progressions and all those things. Those are probably a lot more well developed than other quarterbacks. Again, not to pick on him, feel like I'm picking on him all the time, but like Zach Wilson played at BYU. You know what I mean? So again, like that's not as high a standard.
Yeah.
And
It
maybe
definitely
like
goes into the evaluation, that's
yeah,
all, for
yeah, and
sure.
like some of the bad habits or some of the kind of things you can get away with at that level, you maybe can't then get away with at the NFL level. Where you look at again, like you're playing at Ohio State, you're playing people like Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin, like you're coming up against potential NFL draftees pretty much every week.
Yeah,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? So like you've got that kind of schooling already. So I think for Stroud, it's like he's got the understanding but it's kind of his poison, his like game awareness that I think has made him so much better than like other rookie quarterbacks that have come in and found it difficult. Even like guys that have gone high in the draft have found it difficult to adjust in the NFL like so quickly. So I think that's what makes him so good. And right now, I think he's right in that kind of tier 2, only because he's only played one season.
Yeah.
Um, so I
Yeah,
think
it's tough to go any higher than that after
yeah,
one season, isn't it?
like you wouldn't want to put him like obviously Lamar's going to win second MVP. Mahomes has won two. Like those guys have won Super Bowls or been in Super Bowls. So like I wouldn't want to necessarily put him like right in there with them straight away. But I think with him, like why can't he then go on? I suppose the one kind of big question is going to be if he loses his offensive coordinator, how does that then change the dynamic or change the
Mm.
relationship?
Yeah.
But I think the other thing as well, you got to remember Tank Dell's going to come back next year. They still have Nico Collins, like, and they got like draft picks to go again. So I think
Yeah.
from like Stroud's point of view, he's right in that kind of tier 2 mix. Um, and I just think like there's something about him. He looks settled. Where like as I said, a lot of young quarterbacks never look settled. Like
Mhm.
they tend to like rush through things and kind of maybe make bad decisions quickly. They kind of act a lot on impulse. He doesn't seem to act on impulse. It seems like the game's slow for him.
Yeah, he's got
Even though, like,
control.
obviously, yeah, like, well, as I said, like for young quarterbacks, no matter when they've been drafted, like, I suppose you want a direct comparison. This is getting a little bit harsh, but Bryce Young, you know what I mean? Like everything looks really rushed and really kind of sped up for him, and it
Mhm.
feels like everything's kind of been he's trying to process everything at like 100 miles an hour, and he's either getting sacked or there's a bad decision or it's a missed throw or whatever. And that's kind of the opposite of Stroud. Now, the situations are a little bit different, obviously, but I think
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
makes Stroud so good so quickly is that he's just got an understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. It's gonna be a really interesting situation to watch develop because obviously, like you say, they could lose Bobby Slowick, and then it's also, who else of that staff can then be promoted or who else are they gonna lose, It's what the 49ers have gone through all the time, under Kyle Shanahan, and obviously that's where
Yeah,
this staff does come from. So maybe they're gonna be used to it from that to a degree, but it's difficult. It's really, really difficult to do that. But like you say, they've got young players, they've got a lot of young talent on that roster, and they've still got draft picks. They've got CJ Stroud, but they've not like had to do what Carolina did and
Yeah,
trade away
like
the future to get him,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is amazing for that team.
yeah. Like, and they've been prudent with some of the free agents, and like nothing
Yeah,
really flashy, but just kind of like solid guys, or whether it's on being on the defensive line or on offense. Like someone like Dalton Schultz, you know what I mean? He's
yeah,
not in the Mark Andrews or Travis Kelsey kind of level of tight end, but he's a serviceable, solid tight end who's
solid.
reliable.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he's an experienced guy in an offense that's got a lot of young players. So I feel like the way like they've gone about it, strange enough, they paid away with Nick Caserio there being the general manager. It's been canned obviously this year, but like they've done a really smart way of like not kind of over committing to everything.
yeah,
So that's why it kind of feels like they're obviously massively ahead of schedule. Like I think
yeah.
everyone thought they'd be better.
Yeah, no, absolutely right, mate. The way I described it in the summer is that they, with their free agency, they kind of threw a lot of mud at the wall with short-term deals, and they're
Yeah,
seeing what's going to
yeah,
stick now, aren't they?
yeah. I mean, you can do that a little bit. Like the Lions did it last year, where they kind of just handed out short. So people like DJ Chark and these guys who came in, and they did okay. And they were kind of a good sounding board for a lot of the younger players. I think again, like where like someone like a Dalton Schultz, when you got like Nico Collins, young receiver, Tank Dell, young receiver, CJ Stroud, young quarterback, like just having his voice there is a little bit,
Mm,
and obviously then they got Laramie Tunsil, who's been around a long time as well. Like,
yeah,
so I feel like they've got like a nice mix of like experienced guys that probably aren't on like massively overpaid contracts and a lot of young players. I feel like it's a really good balance that they've got now. I suppose the hard thing is like, I suppose like what you said before with Jacksonville, like it's so easy, particularly in the AFC, to like suddenly like drop off a little bit because the competition's so tough, and like they're
playing a
going to have
first
a
place schedule next year.
first place
Yeah, yeah.
schedule next year as well. So like those challenges will come, but I still feel like with Stroud, they've got a guy who's like at least he's got like a load of building blocks in early.
And no one's going to want to play them next year. No one's going to look at that game and think
No,
we can take
yeah,
them, or
yeah, I'm not,
what we're
yeah,
worried.
like 100%. I think the one thing like D'Amico Ryans has done. I remember speaking to someone who was from Houston. Strangely enough, they were a student here in Newcastle, and he was saying like, "Oh, like what do people feel about the Texans?" In Houston, to be fair, like a lot of people tend not to really care about it. This was 2017, 2018 time. A lot of people tend not to really care about the Texans because they've only been in existence since 2002, and like
Mm,
the Astros and the Rockets and these people have been around for so much longer. It's like we don't necessarily dislike them. We just like it's one of them. It's kind of like
indifferent.
like yeah, like indifferent towards it. I think with D'Amico Ryan's, he's changed that. Like that place was probably the loudest it's ever been on
Yeah,
Saturday.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like I feel like that's going to give them such an edge going forward. It feels like they've like finally got like an identity to them rather than
Mhm.
before. Oh well, they're just the Houston Texans. They're just another forgettable AFC South team. Like
Yeah.
which I feel like this division always feels like it cycles through that thing of like nobody really ever cares about these teams.
Mm,
But
mm.
I think that's the one thing they've got in D'Amico Ryan's. Like you'd run through walls for him.
Yeah, for sure. And Stroud will do that to a city as well. It's like when they had JJ Watt. They had someone they could get behind. Stroud will do that, especially as he begins and continues to ascend through the tiers and just as a star. He'll just be attractive to everyone around the city and everyone around the country and beyond. Absolutely. So yeah, no, the Texans will definitely continue to be a team that I will keep my eye on. But a team that everyone's keeping their eye on at the moment is your Detroit Lions. Surely, let me just take you back to what you said a couple of weeks ago when you were talking about the build-up to this game. How was the build-up to this game? Was it as crazy as you thought it was going to be? Did you kind of bury your head in the sand successfully, as you said you
Yeah,
wanted to?
yeah. I tried to like. Do you know what it is? It was easier kind of Monday to Thursday, to kind of like because obviously, particularly last week, all hell broke loose with like obviously various coaches losing their jobs on the Mondays and
Yeah,
Tuesdays, and then
yeah,
Pete Carroll, Nick Saban, Belichick. Do you know what I mean? So like Monday to Thursday, it was kind of easy because so much other stuff was happening. And listen, like Bill Belichick leaving the Patriots, or Nick Saban leaving Alabama, and even Pete Carroll leaving
yeah.
Seattle. That's massive.
That
Do you know what I
also
mean? For
seems
it,
like so long ago now,
yeah,
right?
do you know what I mean? For it to happen in the space of 24 hours is just
Mm,
mad.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I was thinking just now, like Arthur Smith was obviously dismissed on the Monday morning,
On the
or pretty
Monday,
much
yeah,
on the
this
midnight.
means while
Yeah,
we're recording.
like um, and like that was like, oh my god, like even by like Wednesday when the Pete Carroll press conference was happening, I was like, did that really happen? And so then obviously you had the Harbaugh thing with Michigan winning, and then obviously now he's like testing the waters, and so like it was easy to avoid Monday to Thursday, because so much other stuff had happened, in what was probably like the wildest week of like NFL or like American football coaching news ever.
Yeah,
And then it was that, yeah, and then it became like, so luckily the hysteria was only like 2 days, and I was kind of like, it's easy to avoid it at that point. You know what I mean? Because like you want to avoid it, particularly like from the LA side, because like like people that live out there are probably going to be tweeting like midnight our time. So it's like I'm not going to see it anyways. So it was easy to kind of miss that side of hysteria. I think the one thing that really annoyed me was like this thing of like non-Lions fans telling Lions fans not to boo Matthew Stafford. Like that really annoyed me. Like as I was tweeted out, like the Pope could have been playing quarterback for the LA Rams. Like like we still would have booed him. Like, do you know what I mean? Nothing personal, but like we waited 32 years for this. We're not letting it go now. You know, like I think so, and that's kind of like what like bugged me a lot is like people seem to lose like the nuance of it. I don't hate Matthew Stafford, not at all. I think he's a legend.
no, of course not.
You know what I mean? Like if I had the thing, I would say he is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I think he's a Hall of Fame quarterbacking talent that was like massively misunderstood and underappreciated by like the wider NFL world. Um,
Yeah, I'd agree
but
with that.
for those 3 hours, I didn't want him to win. You know what I
No,
mean?
of
Like
course,
it's one of
yeah.
those like if had they won and like they went to San Francisco or wherever they went, I'd be like, yeah, like best of luck. Like hope he goes far as he possibly can. But I didn't want him to win yesterday. Do you know what I mean? So like that were kind of like that whole thing annoyed me because like listen, we don't hate him. We would have booed anybody. Do you know what I mean? Like Tom Brady played in
Mm.
Michigan. Had he come back, he would have got booed too. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not personal. We just didn't want the opposing team to win. And I think to be fair, like to Sean McVay and Stafford beforehand, like you kind of got it. Like realistically, if you're like a football player and you're going somewhere that hasn't like Ford Field's never hosted a playoff game, you're going there and thinking, yeah, we're going to expect like really kind of like a friendly welcome and a really warm reception. Probably in the wrong business. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
like
yeah, for
so
sure.
so like so like a little bit of that annoyed me. And I think also the one thing the NFL tried to really frame it as was like so Stafford's return. And there was even a tweet the NFL tweeted out a thing, and there was like a cartoon style graphic of Stafford walking out of the tunnel at Ford Field, and there was like these cartoonized like Lions fans with like, "Oh, welcome home, Matt, and we love you, Matt." And I'm like, I remember tweeting, I'm thinking, listen, one day when he goes into like the Lions Hall of Fame, there'll be signs there when he's retired and he's done and he comes back. Those signs won't be there on Sunday, trust me.
No, no.
So like that kind of angle annoyed me a little bit because frankly, like I don't know how much tickets cost, but like say for example in our football, tickets cost a lot of money. You buy a ticket, feel free to boo, cheer, applaud, not applaud, whoever you want. Do you know what I mean? Like I
Mm,
feel
mm.
like, again, like I don't think it was ever anything personal. I was like, oh, like we hope you die, Matthew Stafford, or anything ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, listen, we love you, but we don't want you to win today. Do you know what I mean?
Do you
Like,
think do you think it made the build up a bit too much about Stafford as the person rather than the actual game between two teams of 53 people?
yeah, 100%. Which is weird because I think like if there was one quarterback that probably hates being the center of any attention, it's him.
Yeah,
Do you know
yeah,
what I
that's
mean?
very true.
Like he just like, and I think that's the one thing that like suited him when he left Detroit is he didn't have to be seen as a savior anymore. You know what I mean? Like every single like the Lions could lose. Say for example, they lost 40 points to 10. Or 44 to 40. Whatever the Lions did on a Sunday, the first discussion was, oh well, what should they do with Matthew Stafford? Should they trade him? This is like going back even 3 or 4 years into his thing. Like every sports talk radio, every podcast, every newspaper column, he was literally the only person anyone ever wanted to talk about. And I think for him, like while he dealt with it and kind of like took it on the chin, he probably hated it at the same time because he has no interest in being anything
Mm,
more than just a good quarterback. Um,
yeah.
and again, I think that's partly the reason why people kind of underappreciate him because he's not going to go on a podcast and tell you his political views. He's not going to, kind of tweet and Instagram things with like his
Yeah,
brother,
yeah.
and I mean, he has no interest in any of that stuff. Which again, like in this day and age, is hard to like. But he's not interested. He plays his backside off every time he plays, and then he goes home. Like that's
There
literally
is
all he's ever wanted to
there
do.
is actually a lot of similarities between Justin Herbert and Matt Stafford, isn't there?
Yeah, well, that's the
in those
thing. Yeah.
senses.
Well, do you know what it is? The first time I saw Herbert, not to go off on tangent completely, the first time I saw him in that Chargers game, I thought he looks like kind of leaner Matthew Stafford. Because obviously Stafford, when he came out, was a little bit kind of carried a little bit of timber. Because he was still growing as a in his own body type of thing. But I thought Herbert, this kid's got a massive arm, kind of got that long hair that Stafford had.
Yeah.
Not afraid of anything. Like I feel like you look at him and think he shouldn't, but he's the type of guy that would truck through a linebacker. And I just
He
thought
did on
this
his
kid looks like
debut, yeah.
yeah. Like this kid looks like he's a leaner Matthew Stafford. And again with Herbert, like the reason why I think people underestimate him or underappreciate him is one, he plays for the Chargers, which again is like a massive holdback. But again, he's not interested in kind of being on TikTok and
Yeah.
being on television adverts and having a podcast. Do you know what I mean? Like all he's interested in is being a very good quarterback and being a very good teammate.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and to be fair, that's what you should be. So I felt like a little bit of the build-up was so Stafford dominated that it kind of like took away from the game, which I actually thought probably one of the best games like of recent times of the wild card weekend. Because this was two really good teams going at it like
Yeah, absolutely.
hell for leather. I remember tweeting now like during the third quarter, like when you talk about playoff football, this is a playoff game. Like two very very closely matched teams going at it hammer and tongs. Both teams making in-game adjustments to react to one another. Both quarterbacks played very good games. Again, like people shouldn't get lost in the fact that while Stafford and Goff are two very different quarterbacks, both were still pretty excellent yesterday. Particularly in the first half, Goff was ruthlessly efficient as he always is. Came out firing. He was accurate. He was quick on his release. I think he went 9 for 9 and 11 for 11 to start the game. So again, like talk about the nerves from his point of view, because this was massive for him. Because if he had lost, like I should have to think what today would have been like. It would have been a bloodbath for him. Do you know what I mean? Like it would have done like I remember like
And he would
seeing
have got it from
someone,
both sides as well,
and he
obviously
would
from
have
the
got it from
Detroit
both
side, and
sides.
obviously the
Yeah,
LA side would have been like,
yeah,
well, God, we traded you, sort of thing as well.
yeah. Like so, like, and then again, like for him, he's another one where he's not interested again on like any kind of extra. He just wants to be a good teammate and be the best quarterback he possibly can be. And he was excellent yesterday. I think he made one mistake when Aaron Donald was ready to take his head off. Which I imagine isn't and he panicked on that one. But apart from that, he was pretty good overall. I think they made some good adjustments in the second half because the Lions only scored 3 points in the second half, but then the Rams only scored 6 in the second half as well. So it wasn't like, do you know what I mean? It wasn't like the game got out of hand either way for one quarterback or the other. I think both of them, I should preface it before getting into the actual game, both quarterbacks showed what they're very good at. Stafford with his ridiculous off platform throws and his arm angles and his no looks, and he's getting hit from pillar to post and he's still standing there. I'm pretty sure he was concussed when Hutchinson and McNeil took his head off. And again, the NFL probably has a lot to answer for on that side of things. But it's hard. Like you try telling Matthew Stafford you're coming out of any game. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like I remember his final season in Detroit, and we were playing the Tennessee Titans, and he had like torn ligaments in his thumb, and like it was pretty much known he was leaving then. And somebody asked him, says, "Dude, like, why'd you bother carrying on playing?" Says, "Yeah, but like the Lions fans go to work Monday to Saturday. I'm paid to play for them, so I'm playing." You know what I mean? Like you're never going to take him out. So for as much as I'm pretty sure he was concussed, how are you going to take him out of the game? I don't know, but he was
Yeah.
unbelievable. 'Cause as I said, it was a Stafford kind of clinic. It was kind of a classic Stafford Ford Field game. He's thrown from all sorts of arm angles, all sorts of platforms, making ridiculous throws on long down and distances. No real run game. He's getting hammered a lot. Do you know what I mean? So it kind of
Had all
looked
the
like,
ingredients.
yeah, had all the ingredients of kind of this is what like we watched for 12 years, just in a different uniform. So he was like utterly outstanding. As you expected him to be. Like, I remember a lot of people thinking, "Oh, will he have any sentiments?" Going, no, he won't. He's here to win. Like, do you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, set.
He's here to win. Like, when the helmet goes on, he's here to win for his teammates, and for his own team. And I understand that completely. I think for Goff, it was the opposite in terms of he's never going to wow you with his arm angles. He stands on one spot and he's going to throw it the same way he's thrown a football his entire life. But what he was accurate. He made smart decisions. He never put the ball in harm's way. He made the big throws when he needed to make the big throws, and he led the Lions out of the gates quickly. Because I think that was my one big concern is I thought the Lions would be so pumped up that maybe they would start a little bit ill-disciplined,
Mhm.
kind of lose control of the game a little bit. But to be fair, like the way he ran it, was excellent. I think it showed you as well. There's lots of different ways of playing quarterback in the NFL. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. Both of those guys were outstanding yesterday. They went punch for punch, but in two very different styles. You've got this kind of all-action Rambo gunslinger type on one side, and then you've got the kind of methodical, kind of metronomical, accurate guy.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, like both ways can win games in the NFL. So I think from that point of view, it was a really good game from the quarterback's point of view. I thought both guys were outstanding.
Mm.
Curious, the one thing that confused me a little bit, Rams deferred. Then there was the ridiculous offside call that wasn't offside. You know what I mean? Like, and again, you're thinking to yourself, like, how has this happened? Because the Lions were in field goal range. They would have had the first down anyways because they got thing to jump, and then obviously they've ruled it Lions punt away. Rams had about a minute with at least two timeouts left, and they didn't go for it, and that was kind of what confused me a little bit. That was kind of the first bit where I was like, I'm not sure because
Mm.
getting the ball outside of halftime. Chris Long said it on his podcast. Like if they had scored twice before half and after half, they would have been up 31-21. And that
Mhm.
like suddenly like the one thing with the Lions, because they like playing from in front, they can control the tempo of a game. Suddenly going 31-21 and the crowd gets a little bit quiet and a little bit antsy, like it puts a lot of the pressure back on the Lions. And that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
I feel like it was a little bit of a missed opportunity from the Rams in that particular instance. Because the other thing as well is like in the first half, neither defense could really stop either team in the first half.
Yeah.
You're allowing you're allowing the Lions defense to get to halftime to kind of regroup and rethink. And then the first drive after that, the Lions forced a punt.
Yeah.
So suddenly, instead of thinking, well, maybe we can double dip and go touchdown, touchdown, and take a lead, we've gone, we've ran the clock out before halftime, and then we've gone 3-and-out straight away. So I think
Mm.
that was a little bit
The
confusing
opposite.
from the Rams. Yeah, like I think they let us off the hook a little bit there. Um, as I said, from that point of view. And then the second half became a struggle. Like that's where it felt like a real tight playoff game where nobody
Yeah.
wanted to make a mistake. I felt like we got a little bit conservative. Strange, I think they got conservative in the red zone, which was a bit
That was
odd.
it. That was the big criticism
That
today,
was the
wasn't it?
difference. Yeah,
And
like
that
that was a difference.
and to me, considering as you've just kind of said, the Lions came out the gate pretty quickly, scored 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. And as much as the Rams scored 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, that vital Sam Laporta touchdown in the second as well, that just kind of managed to keep them at arm's length, I thought. And then
Yeah,
the second half was almost just waiting for some team to take the initiative.
yeah.
And neither team really did it when you
No,
would really expect both teams to go for it, considering the head coaches, considering
yeah,
the way that they play. But neither
yeah.
team did it. It's kind of weird.
It was. It was. I felt like a little bit of maybe nobody wanted to make a mistake because it was so close. You're thinking one mistake or one turnover or one kind of fumble or something like that would decide it. It was that close. Um, I still, as I said, the Rams in the red zone were a little bit perplexing in terms of like the Lions ranked 26 in red zone defense over the last 6 weeks. So like they're not
Mhm.
great. Like ultimately, the Lions are a flawed defense. They blitz a lot because they find it difficult to generate a lot of pressure outside of Aiden Hutchinson,
Yeah,
which means you get a lot of free one-on-one shots in the secondary. And on some of them, they did hit, and Puka Nakua was incredible. Like that dude's going to be
it's going
insane.
to be good.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
basically, as long as he's got like the kind of hunger and fitness, like he'll be as good as he wants to be.
yeah,
He's so difficult. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Saint Brown in that you feel like you can go to him in any kind of third down situation. He's going to make a catch and he's going to make defenders miss. It kind of
yeah,
reminds me
yeah.
a little bit of like that kind of real tough, gritty wide receiver. So for like them in the red zone, it was a bit strange that they couldn't like unlock the Lions' defense. And the other thing as well, you mentioned the Laporta touchdown. That was on a fourth down, where the Rams
Yeah,
had stopped once, one of the few times in the first half, the Rams had stopped the Lions for 3 consecutive downs in that instance. And again, like McVay chose maybe to kick the field goal, and it's hard to criticize because you always say in like playoff games, points matter. If you can get points on the board, keep it close, you don't want to necessarily come away empty-handed. But I just felt like that was ultimately where it decided the game. Aiden Hutchinson was incredible as always. I think this was the highest pressure rate. I think he's had a pressure percentage win rate of around 30%, which is the highest of his career.
Yeah,
There was a
that's
massive
elite.
pressure well, there was a massive pressure when he got a hold on Rob Havenstein, which then forced them out of field goal range, and then they missed on the third down and the fourth down conversions, which then made them punt the game, and they didn't punt the ball and didn't get the ball back. So from that point of view, he was exceptional. I feel like it was so tight. Like there were so many good performances from Rams players, from Lions players. Don't think the coaches did a lot wrong. Like it was a really tough, close game, and it's hard to like kind of say one or the other because like both quarterbacks brought it. Wide receivers on both teams were good. Josh Reynolds was exceptional in the first half.
Mm.
Nakua was so good. This was the one man that was a little bit quiet was Cup,
Up, yeah,
particularly
yeah,
in the red
yeah.
zone. Like as I said again, like that was kind of my big worry is the Lions have played a lot of teams where they've had like a superstar like a Justin Jefferson or a CD Lamb, and they've basically like you guys can have all the yards. We'll just try and silence everybody else. And they've kind of gotten away with it a little bit. But Cup and Nakua I thought would be very difficult to stop because both are so good. To be fair,
Hmm.
Cooper Cup was a little bit quiet. So from that perspective, again, maybe they'll feel like missed opportunities. I just think from the Lions' perspective, to concede just 6 points in the second half was like ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
because I thought they'd lose 33 to 31, 30. I didn't think like they'd be able to keep the Rams over under 30 points. So to get them to hold to just 6 points like in the second half was just like as an effort somehow considering kind of how lopsided the defense is and that they got like
Mhm.
a few stars. Brian Branch is going to be really good. Hutchinson's good. I think Jack Campbell will be really good as time goes on. But then they got a lot of like few journeymen, people like John
Yeah, yeah.
Kaminsky and Benito Jones, who like as I said were kind of like those just throw mud at the wall and see what sticks free agent signings last year. And those guys kind of came in and they did enough, but like the liabilities realistically, same with Kindle Vildor, who was like on the practice squad in Chicago and then came here.
Mhm.
Like they're not like the Lions are talent deficient on defense pretty much. They got like a few kind of stars. Gardner Johnson would be in there as well, but then they've got like a lot of kind of just journeymen,
Yeah, yeah.
um, on short term
Just
deals.
speaks to a well coached unit though, doesn't it? And
Yeah, like well, I think the
team that
one
plays
thing,
hard, you know.
yeah, like that's what they are. They're competitive, which I think was the one thing like that really stood out yesterday. And I think lastly, like as like a kind of finishing thing, like for Jared Goff to hit the winning pass in terms of icing the game, like you just couldn't ask for more. As I said, like I'm happy for him because he never asked to be traded here, and I remember saying it to a lot of like Lions fans at the time. When he came here, the starting receivers were Terrell Williams and Brashad Perryman. Um, neither of those two play in the league anymore.
Yeah,
He had
true.
an
Yeah.
offensive line that didn't have Penei Sewell at the time, or Penei Sewell was a rookie. There was question marks over Taylor. Like he walked into a situation like imagine going from playing for your home team, getting to a Super Bowl, being kind of a perennial playoff contender, and then you get forced out. Whatever happened, happened. You kind of get scapegoated a little bit. Not a little bit. He pretty much got all the
Yeah,
scapegoat. Do you know what I
definitely.
mean? And then you come here, like he played college football at Cal. He played his professional career in LA. Comes to a cold place in the middle of nowhere on a team that was just like a wasteland. Like I think Alec Anzalone said, we're like the misfit toys. Like we're just a group. Like how we all ended up in the same room. You know what I mean? Like
Mm, mm.
and every other quarterback would have like bitched and moaned and said, I don't want to be here. And to be fair, it was easy. It would have been easy for him to say that because like no Lions fans thought he'd be here beyond the 2021 season. We all thought,
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
draft
it's true.
somebody, like we'll draft someone, and then like he'll just move on, like he'll just become kind of like a bridge or a stopgap, and he'll go somewhere else, and do whatever it is that he does. So none of us ever thought that, and he never ever complained, even like when there were people saying play Tim Boyle and play David Blau and play Jeff Driscoll and all these people like within the kind of Lions fan base and Detroit talk radio, like they were saying like this guy sucks. Like he's terrible. Like move on from him. You know, play anybody but him. Um, and again, like he never ever complained. He'd always step up to the press conferences and take all the live bullets from everybody when the Lions were really bad. Like never ever bitched about anything. Never said like, I don't want to be here or any of that. And for him, as I said, like he's just a good guy.
Mm.
Like he's
That's
a
what
good
leadership
quarterback.
looks like, isn't it?
Yeah, like that. Do you know what it is? Like he's quiet. Like he is again. Like probably goes against him in some ways is that he doesn't say a lot. Because he's not interested in saying a lot. Like he's dull. Like I can't imagine. Like the media, Jared Goff is probably a very different person than what people see behind kind of closed doors when he's with his family and his friends. That's fine. But I think people counted against him. But you look at when his high school team had like a losing record every year until he became the starter and they had a winning season. He walked into a situation at Cal, I think they had been like winless or they'd be like a 2-win team or a 1-win team, and then they had a winning season in his final year. The LA Rams never made the playoffs for like 10 years before he got there, or even when they were the St. Louis Rams. Gets there, he goes again. If you want to give all the credit to Sean McVay, fine, that's fine. Give all the credit to Sean McVay in the world if you want to do that. But don't tell me there aren't that many geniuses in the world. And Ben Johnson's a brilliant coach, but he's not a genius because he worked for Joe Philbin and Adam Gase. And nobody like and nobody wanted to like he's 39, like nobody was saying, oh, this kid Ben Johnson's like we need to hire him ASAP. Do you know what I mean? Matt Patricia hired him at the Detroit Lions, and the Lions just kept him because like when Dan Campbell came in, it's like, okay, well you know the offense, like we don't know this offense, we don't know these players, so like we'll just keep you. You know what I mean? Like Jared Goff isn't lucky enough. Nobody's lucky enough to go from one genius offensive coordinator and be carried by him to another genius offense. That doesn't happen. Do you know what I
Yeah, I see
mean?
what you're saying. Yeah.
That's just like ludicrous. So like, stop that. He's top five in terms of like pressure to sack conversion rate. Behind Allen and Mahomes, who by all accounts are pretty good. Do you know what I mean? As far as memory serves, like they're pretty good. So he's been fine on that. He's basically been a top 10 quarterback over the last 2 years. Now, again, if you want to say, oh yeah, but he has really good weapons, well, hang on. The Rams didn't want Josh Reynolds. Nobody wanted Khalif Raymond. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
Amon-Ra St. Brown was there for everybody else to be drafted, and nobody did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you can say like again, you want to kind of say, oh, he's got like has he? Like, that like on reputation, they're not like Brandon Ayuk and Debo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey, like they're good players, you know.
Mm.
Oh, nobody wanted Josh Reynolds 3 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like, and they found a role for him. So like this idea of like it annoys me that we always look for a reason of why can't Jared Goff do this. Now I'm not going to sit here and say he can run around like Justin Fields or Lamar Jackson or throw a ball like Patrick Mahomes. Do you know what it is? He's a very, very good quarterback. He's a solid quarterback that knows his job pretty well. If you give him time, he'll pick you apart. That's the one thing. But like, Matt Ryan was a bit like that. If you got interior pressure on him, Matt Ryan would fall because he was kind of
Mm.
similar build. You know what I mean? Kind of
Yeah.
gangly, skinny guys that don't move a lot. But if you give them time, they'll pick you apart. And I think the one thing with Goff, we need to kind of forget all the kind of lazy tropes and stereotypes, and he can't do this and he can't do that, and he was lucky here and he was lucky there. He's one game away from leading the Lions to an NFC Championship game. Now I don't know the kind of stats. Kurt Warner did it. He was pretty good. Peyton Manning did it in the AFC. Again, he was pretty good. I'm not comparing him to these people, but you can't be successful in two different organizations that were pretty much at rock bottom when you went there and just be like carried along for the ride.
Mm. Yeah.
Do you know what I
Some of
mean?
it's down
Like,
to him, isn't it? It's not
yeah,
just
like it's
the
not just like
circumstances
yeah,
or
it's not
those
just
around him.
yeah.
Or
Because as I said, like if it was, then like how come nobody else wanted Josh Reynolds? Do you know what I mean? Like you guys like as I said, it annoys me that like people always look for a situation as to what oh he's got a really good offensive line. Well, isn't that the point? Like you got to have a really
yeah.
good offensive line.
Anyone
Like
can do that.
yeah, like and like say for like I'll use Justin Fields as an example. Oh yeah, but Justin Fields like he never has a good offensive line. Well then build a good offensive line. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
like like all season I've heard about Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is great. Oh yeah, but he needs good wide receivers. Well, yeah, like so does everybody. Like
Mm.
Joe Montana had Jerry Rice. You know what I mean? Like Peyton Manning had Marvin Harrison. Like you need good players around you to like be successful. This isn't like we use stuff like that as a knock on other
Mm.
quarterbacks or quarterbacks that don't necessarily fit a narrative that people want to push. Like he's done his job pretty well. Like you look at his records, and again, like you look what he's done in Detroit. It's hard to argue with. Like okay, again, if you want to give all the credit to somebody else, that's fine, but that's not the truth. Like
Yeah. I
You
know
know what I
exactly what
mean?
you're saying. Yeah.
Like doesn't work like that. Like the guy that was picked second after him, he doesn't even start in the NFL anymore. And
Yeah,
somehow,
it's very, very true.
and
Yeah.
again, like a lot of people would say, "Oh yeah, but Wentz has a better arm and he's a better athlete." And yeah, but there's a reason why he doesn't start. And
Mm.
Goff walked
And
into
Goff does.
a
Yeah.
worse
Especially because he's gone into
situation.
that situation, built himself and the
Yeah,
team
and
around him
built
back up,
himself
and
back
hey, here
up.
you are, sort of thing.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
like you know what I mean? Like as I said, everybody else would have spat the dummy out and throw the toys out the pram, and he didn't. And like
Mm.
the respect I've got for him for that because he didn't have to. Do you know what I mean? Like nobody wanted him here. I doubt he wanted to be here, and yet like sixty
Made
six
the best
thousand
out of a bad
people.
situation.
Yeah, like 66,000 people were chanting his name. And fair play to the guy. As I said, he's never going to be Patrick Mahomes. That's fine. And if you feel like you've got a Patrick Mahomes, okay, then move on. But it's a lot easier to find Zach Wilsons and these people than it is to find a Patrick Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And while
absolutely.
you've got Goff, like as I said, he's 2 games away. The Lions win the next 2 games, they're in the Super Bowl. Not many quarterbacks have led multiple franchises to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, very true. Very
Do you know what I
true.
mean? And so again, like he, nobody gets traded out and then finds another genius offensive coordinator. Do you know what I mean? Because there's not enough geniuses in the world. Like it's true. Like it is. Like Sean McVay is a certified genius. Fair enough. I don't think Ben Johnson is. Ben Johnson is just pretty smart leader. And I think the
Mm.
thing with it, the big thing is he and Goff click really well. To be fair, like both of them, I've read a lot of stuff about them. Like kind of share a lot of personal interests outside of football, which I think has helped Goff a lot. And to be fair, like the one biggest compliment you can pay him is you become a man. Like he's a grown man now. Like where you're always felt like he was kind of Elias protected boy a little bit,
Yeah,
and
sure. Yeah, yeah.
and like it felt like he didn't have to do where like now he is like for example even like swearing, profanity laced locker room talks. Like it always felt like he was like this kind of clean cut guy that could never like even the way he dressed. Like it sounds stupid, but like he's got like the big hat, the big like M&M hats on, and like the woolly jackets. Do you know what I mean? Like it feels like he's grown up a lot. And as I said, like I'm not going to sit here and say he's an MVP quarterback and this that and the other. No, he's not. But like pay him his respect. Like
Mm. Yeah, no, I hear you, definitely. I
there's
think you're
not
making a
another
lot of good
quarterback.
points.
Yeah, there's not another quarterback I don't think in the NFL that would have walked into that situation and still be here. Like I'll put like Mahomes and Lamar because I don't think they would have mentally been able to think like, why the hell am I here? I don't want to be here. Like
Yeah, right.
everybody hates me. Everybody blames me. I've been in the door 2 minutes. This team has been bad forever, and like I'm being scapegoated and vilified for it again. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? So like, hats off to him just for the guts he's shown.
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. You make a lot of good points, and hopefully the story isn't going to end next week. Especially from your point of view in particular. And obviously, I don't have a dog in the fight now, so
Yeah.
hopefully for your sake, it continues. But
Suppose you just
let's
don't want Kansas City to win.
I don't think they will either. I'm kind of staying comfortable on that one, to be honest with you. And as much
For as
as
long
we'll
as
talk,
Baltimore, yeah, for as long as Baltimore are there, I don't think the Chiefs are. I think if Baltimore get knocked out, then it's open season for everybody else.
yeah, I'd go along with that for sure. But we'll talk about the Chiefs now. We'll talk about the Chiefs and
Mm.
Dolphins. The other two games that we're going to talk about briefly. We'll keep these two fairly brief, but they weren't close. Miami, obviously, we talked a lot about Miami throughout the season. Just peaked too soon, didn't they? And just going back to what you've just been saying about Jared Goff, I just don't think Tua's got that, that gumption, that moral, that mentality, that it
Toughness,
factor,
yeah,
that toughness. He's not got because that's going to be a really interesting one because obviously Tua's going into his final year of his contract next year, his 5th-year option. Miami, unless they win a Super Bowl or unless they get further than they have this year, they're probably not going to extend him, right? And then Tua's going to be in that situation potentially where Goff found himself, and
yeah.
I don't think he was going to be able to do what Goff's just done, what you've just described.
That's the heart. Like I feel for Tua a little bit in that,
Same.
like because like I think Saturday was just a crapshoot. Like if you could ever think of like a worse situation to put the Miami Dolphins in, playing in like -20, and you know what I mean, like on a
Yeah, it's
freezing
tough.
cold pitch when you've
It's
got
tough.
so many injury, like they could have played their best possible game and
But
still
come,
maybe
do you
lost.
know what though? Just on the weather, and Oh yeah, it's bad. Obviously, the Chiefs are used to playing in cold. At the end of the day, every September when people are going to Miami, that's
And
their
it's
advantage.
horrendous. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So like from their point of view, like I don't know what to say about the Dolphins. Like I feel like they've been so fun to watch, but then like what are they 1-7 against playoff teams this year?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think they had losing record against playoff teams last year as well. So like there's something.
Sounds soft.
Yeah, well, that's what it could be. Like it could be that like maybe there's kind of whether it's a mental kind of fragility. Like even last week, like nobody really thought they'd beat Buffalo. Do you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
they scored
Hmm.
70 and then went to Buffalo earlier in the season and got beat pretty comfortably. Like maybe it is just like a mental kind of toughness that they lack. As I said, but it's hard to like kind of think because I think sometimes you got to find it within yourself. Like I agree with what you're saying about Tua is that he looks like what Goff did 5 years ago in terms of like you don't think he's got that kind of toughness or that kind of killer instinct within him. Now
Yeah,
Goff's
that's it.
found it. Now
Yeah.
it helps that he's paired with a lunatic as a head coach. You know what I
That
mean?
was it.
So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like they kind of where like well Mike McDaniel, he's such a nice guy. He's such a cool guy. He's kind of eccentric. Like again, like does he have that kind of ruthlessness within him? And I think that's the one thing with Miami that's so kind of disappointing is, and then now I think it becomes a mental thing because I think a lot of people, even next season when good teams play them, no one's going to believe in them. Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah, if
think
this
other
keeps
teams,
rearing its head, it's going to get
yeah,
really
it
difficult to
does.
back them,
Well,
isn't
well,
it?
like yeah, like the Bills will keep playing them, and the Bills will think, well, we know that you guys know that you can't beat us.
Yeah,
Do you know what
yeah,
I
yeah. And
mean?
that mental stumbling block becomes a massive,
Yeah,
massive
like it
mountain to climb
does.
over, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Well, like look like in our football, like Spurs, like obviously being
Yeah,
Spursy.
yeah. Great
Do you know what I
comparison.
mean? And I feel like that's what the Dolphins are. And I don't know how like you got to find it within yourself, but I don't know if they can. And I think the other thing as well, though, like they got questions in terms of they got a lot of guys on big contracts, like a lot of kind of veteran guys, and then they got like guys that are injured that are going to come back. Like, how do you kind of fit all those pieces together? I think so I'm not thinking it. I didn't tweet it out, but if you can trade for Justin Fields, I don't know how because the picks aren't there, but if you can make a swing for Justin Fields, then I think you got to go for it. The other problem they got is like, say for example, if they don't re-sign Tua and they can't, like, what veteran are you going to get? Like,
Kirk.
yeah, maybe, but then he's coming off an injury, and like like I like Kirk. I think he's a very, very good quarterback.
He is. He is. He is
Like,
definitely.
but then is he because the same thing that the people have said about like Miami not beating like the real top teams. The same
Mm.
thing people have said about the Vikings under. So
Well,
like,
the thing is about Kirk, though, right? If you take the Shanahan thing with quarterbacks, where he doesn't need like a great quarterback, Kirk is like the final boss of Shanahan
yeah,
quarterbacks.
yeah, yeah. No, that's true. Like, I feel like those are realistically the only moves. But for two, I don't know. Like, I think he's got to find like just that kind of stubbornness within him that like I'm not gonna lose today. Like
Mm.
you can kind of think what you want to think of me, but I'm gonna find a way of getting the job done. But at the moment, as I said, like they feel like they are a soft team to play against. Like I think certain teams feel like, particularly in the AFC, I think certain teams feel like they can bully them. Baltimore certainly did 2 weeks ago. Kansas City did
Buffalo
really
can
on
do it.
Saturday as well.
Yeah,
Buffalo can do it, and I think that's going to be their concern is maybe on days when it's clear weather, it's sunny, it's hot in Miami, like, and they can turn a game into a track meet. Well, we can beat anyone then, but I think it's difficult for them, particularly away from home. Um,
yeah,
like
yeah.
just kind of hang with the real top teams, and they're gonna have to find like a resilience. Otherwise, it's a shame in some ways because they're exciting to watch, but it's hard to kind of see a path for them. Like
Yeah,
Buffalo are a mentally tough team. Like all the shit that they've gone through this season to still be standing as the division winners. Like
yeah,
like
absolutely.
that's like when it's time to kind of put your hard hats on and go to work, they're gonna do that. Where the Dolphins have had so many things go for them this year, and any kind of small stumbling blocks have kind of been magnified to the point where it feels like you would just never pick them in any away game against a good team.
Yeah. The other one as well that springs to my mind, just very, very briefly on what you've just talked about, the teams that can mentally bully them and physically bully them as well, is if you think forward a few months, the Aaron Rodgers Jets are probably going to be able to do that to them as well.
Yeah.
Given
So
their
like,
defense, given their head coach,
yeah,
given their record this year with
exactly.
with Zach
So,
Wilson
like,
or similar at quarterback.
yeah, like that's where, and that's like, of all the
That's another
teams that
2
lost
games.
this weekend, yeah, like of all the teams that lost this weekend, feel like they're the team with like the most. Maybe not Dallas because the way it happened in Dallas, but certainly in the AFC, I think like of the kind of would-be pretenders or contenders, Miami have got like more kind of soul searching to do than anybody else, and
Yeah, I'd agree,
and,
100%.
and I don't think it's like just like, oh, we'll sign this player or we'll trade for this, because they've done that really over the last few years. They traded for Chubb, traded for Ramsey, they got
Mm.
Tyreek Hill. Like they've gone big on kind of the superstars.
The
But
Dolphins are in the same situation as what the Chargers were in last year. They're like they pushed it all in, and now they're almost committed to doing it again next year. And if it doesn't happen
yeah,
next year, then that's it.
yeah. And as I said, like they're gonna have to find like some kind of resolve from within where they kind of stand up and see you're not gonna push us around in these difficult conditions. But been like that, been the same story for the last 2 years. I don't know how
Mm.
it's gonna change for the third year.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's a move that needs to be made, but that is like not that obvious in what's going to happen, is it really?
Yeah,
But we'll see. We'll see. Just briefly on the Chiefs, like I said before, I don't think they're going to win it all. I think they're a deeply flawed team this year.
yeah.
I think with the weather and things like that, the chips were stacked in their favor. We'll see what they do next week. They're still going to be a must watch because of Mahomes, but I don't think it's their year this year.
No, I don't see them. Ultimately, if they have to go to Baltimore, I don't see them winning in Baltimore.
No,
I'll say it now. Like Baltimore, as long as they don't look past their opponents, will win the Super Bowl. I'm pretty convinced of it. Because I don't think the fact that what they did to the 49ers like 4 weeks ago on Christmas, like, or not even 4 weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago or whatever it was
Mhm,
on
mhm.
Christmas Day, like that's the best that the NFC's got, and they did that to them. I don't think realistically I can't see Baltimore.
The only
Maybe
thing that
Buffalo if Josh
The only
Allen
thing
kind
that
of
springs to my mind, and this is just my complete kind of my viewpoint because it's the way I saw this happen, was in 2018 when the Chargers beat the Ravens in the wildcard round. They played them
yeah
2 weeks earlier. And you have the
yeah
tape then, don't you? You have the tape on what?
you
So if the
do
49ers
you
can
do.
go away
That,
and they
that,
can,
that's the
kind of
interesting thing
build a
about
game
it
plan
is
off
like
that, then that's a
you look at the
different way to play the game, isn't it?
yeah
But, just
like
something that springs to mind.
no, no, that's a fair point. And to be fair, like at least the 49ers have something to go off. Or if it's the Lions played them earlier this year. Like whoever it may, like I just think it's so difficult to beat them. Like I find it
It
hard to
is.
make a case for anyone in the AFC beating. That's why, like from a Chiefs point of view, this game is like okay, they won. Like their defense was good. Again, like the odds were in their favor, in
Mhm.
terms of who they were playing and the conditions and everything else. But like I feel really hard to say anything about the Chiefs. Like they're a flawed team. They still got a superstar at quarterback. They got a really good defense, but
That's
don't
right.
think they've got the kind of
Don't have a running game.
overall. Yeah,
Don't have the
like
receivers anymore. Kelsey looks
yeah,
like he's slowing down a little bit.
he looks
Yeah,
old. He's made that jump from being experienced to old.
yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what these two teams kind of do moving forward. Obviously, we've got the Chiefs coming up next week that we can talk about again. We'll briefly touch on the final game that we've seen so far this weekend, which was the Packers demolishing really the Cowboys. I know this scoreline doesn't make it seem like that, but if
No,
anyone
it
who
doesn't.
watched this knows that this was not a close game. This was not a
No.
16-point game. It was 32-48 on the scoreline, but in reality, it was a chasm between them and the Packers. Jordan Love was superb, wasn't he?
Yeah.
The whole game that he played, he didn't play the whole game, but just looks in complete control. Just basically, I think, just thinking back to what we've just been talking about over the past like half an hour or so, Stroud, Goff, Love, they were all the same, poised, accurate, efficient, did what they needed to do, didn't look flustered, managed the game perfectly. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense in terms of game management. And the Packers defense also came to play a little bit like the Texans did and scored 2 touchdowns as well. And, this is, again, a lot of soul searching to compare Dallas and Miami. Again, a lot of soul searching to go on. We've obviously heard about Mike McCarthy and will he, won't he get fired? Jerry talking to Bill Belichick maybe and all that sort of stuff. So we've got a lot to talk about. But yeah, what were your kind of viewpoints on this game?
Oh, this was mad because like obviously over the last few years, the Cowboys have found like strange ways of like remember like the Dez catch at Lambeau that wasn't a catch and was, or like the time when they played the 49ers and like Dak was trying to get the playoff and they didn't get the playoff and like so like in previous years it felt like they always found a way of losing despite being pretty competitive in the game, and kind of fine margins, kind of time management errors, etc. has cost them. Yesterday was kind of probably the worst one in that like they just got destroyed and like
Yeah.
and obviously they haven't lost at home since what September 2022. I think week one of the 2022 season when Brady went in there and beat them. They've been unbeaten at home since then. They've beaten some pretty good teams, and it was unbelievable. Kind of how it was one of those days where nobody can say, "Oh well, like I did my job okay." Do you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
was one of the like it was one of them days where like everyone like you can't pin it on Dak. You can't just say it was Dan Quinn. You can't just like everyone involved was kind of like at fault for it. It was just a really bad day at the office. It's one of them in the regular season. The coach would say, "Listen, like we've got to burn the tape and forget this." You know what I mean? But you can't forget this. You got to stew over this for the next 10 months.
Yeah.
And and
Yeah.
and I don't know what to say about the Cowboys anymore. Like 3 consecutive 12-win seasons, but they haven't been to an NFC Championship game. They don't win well away from home, anyways. I think that's a big concern. Going forward. So like, I don't know. Like it feels like just one of them. You don't want to get like too caught up in the. It feels like they're further away from the Super Bowl than what they've probably thought they've ever been. And I'm not sure. Like there's one kind of decision. Like maybe it's Belichick, but then I don't know. Like Bill ran, like he ran an organization for 20 years. Is he then going to want to come in and kind of be subservient to somebody else? Like he would feel like maybe the right character to like take them over the top because you feel like with his organization, kind of how
Yeah. Right.
disciplined and kind of how well drilled his defenses are, you feel like there's still enough talent on this team to get win an NFC Championship game and maybe
Easily.
get us.
Easily.
Yeah, like you know what I mean. Like Dak Prescott's a really good quarterback. CeeDee Lamb's a really good wide receiver. Like they got good. Jake Ferguson's going to be a good tight end. They can run the ball with Tony Pollard and Rico Dowdle. Like they've got a lot of like, and then obviously with people like Parsons and Odigizua and Dexter Lawrence and all these guys like that are so talented. Like you feel like that could be the step. I think it's over for Mike McCarthy. Which I don't like saying because like I always felt like he got a raw deal having to deal with Rodgers in Green Bay. I can imagine kind of how just infuriating that would have been. And he also won a Super Bowl. Like I'm not going to sit here and kind of say, oh, he didn't deserve to win and this and the other. But I think it's over for him and Dan Quinn in Seattle, in Dallas. Like I don't see how you can come back from that. Like Jerry Jones is an old man, and for as much as like he probably doesn't want to say it out loud. His ego probably wants to be on that podium receiving the Lombardi Trophy, like
Absolutely.
desperate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he
Yeah.
wants that probably more than anything in the world. And so for like, yeah, I think they'll run it back with this group of players because realistically, what are you going to do? Like talent wise, is probably the second best roster in the NFC. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? In terms of top to bottom, you look at the special teams, the kicker's really good, the quarterback's good, they got a superstar wide receiver, the defense has got loads of talented players. They just need to find a way of kind of taken that last step. It seems almost again like a mental hurdle that they can't get past. And I suppose the longer it goes on, it becomes harder to kind of,
Yeah. That
kind of
mountain
get
only
over
grows,
it.
doesn't it, in your mind?
Yeah,
Definitely.
like it does, yeah. So like, but who the coach is, because I don't know what Belichick wants to do. Like we know he wants to coach again, but like, does he want like full control over the organization? Weirdly, people are saying Atlanta are like in pole position to get Belichick. Like it's a strange one. If I'm Dallas and I feel like I could get Bill, you go get him. Do you know what I mean? Like if I'm like Jerry
Yeah.
Jones today, like I go and hire him. But does Jerry then want to give up like organizational control? Like he's run that place for 30 years. Bill's run one organization for the last 20. Like where does that kind of, do they butt heads? Are they happy to kind
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, are you happy to come in, Bill, on like a 2-year contract? I'll still run the show, but you be my head coach and get me the Super Bowl, and you can walk away having won a Super Bowl outside of the New England, outside of Brady, and kind of answer those questions. Like,
And in the process, you'll get your wins record as
and
well. So you'll be
you'll
the
get the
winningest head
wins record
coach.
as well, yeah. But then, like, so that's kind of, those are the questions I feel like they've got to answer. Like, yeah, so it's like, well, obviously with Miami are kind of with the quarterback. Like Dallas have got a good quarterback. Dak Prescott's a really good quarterback.
Yeah.
Um, he'll be fine. Like long term. Yesterday was a bad day for him. It was the wrong time. it was the wrong time to play your worst game of the season. You can get away with it in week 3 because you got time to make up for it.
Yeah, and no one remembers it at this point.
Yeah, no one remembers it. Yeah, no one remembers. Like every quarterback has one really bad game in the regular season. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just the nature of the beast. But you do that on a wild card weekend in Dallas for the Dallas Cowboys, people's going to be talking about it forever.
Mhm.
So like I think that for me is the big decision. Like where do they go with coach? I think it's got to be somebody experienced. People are saying Harbaugh. I mean that would be an intriguing fit. But I feel like Harbaugh, he's so demanding of people that like he can rub people up the wrong way sometimes.
Oh, he definitely does. Yeah.
Yeah, like that, like that's ultimately what cost him in San Francisco. He was kind of this like the fire would burn out by the end. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? So like from Dallas's point of view, they need a new head coach, but I ain't got a clue who it's going to be.
Yeah, just while we're kind of talking about these topics in terms of Dallas choking out the playoffs and Bill Belichick maybe going in there, this kind of brings on to our memes. Mine is the Bill binoculars meme because obviously it's being talked about whether we'll go there, whether or not. It's interesting one because like you just laid it out. It's an interesting political situation within the organization whether that'll be feasible or not. From my point of view, with my selfish hat on, I hope that he does go there. Oh well, actually, I hope that Mike McCarthy just continues because I don't think he's that good of a head coach. Hope that they can like scapegoat Dan Quinn in some way. He can go off and get a head coach job somewhere else.
Yeah,
Mike McCarthy can keep his job. He can say it was all Dan Quinn's fault and it all just kind of not developing Dallas. Because ideally, I want Bill Belichick out of the conference, but if he's not there at all, then fine, because it's just like one less good head coach. And hopefully it means that Jim Harbaugh doesn't go to the Cowboys as well, because Jerry Jones could absolutely outbid absolutely anyone in the NFL.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'd rather that Jim Harbaugh came to the Chargers, but that's just me.
yeah.
And obviously
No,
you're sorry, go on.
yeah. So my meme, it's the same thing. Like this is the other thing with the Cowboys. It feels like we watch the same. It's always kind of different actors. The
But
kind of
it's the
take
same
on the
show.
same. It's the same show. Do you know what I mean? It's kind
Yeah.
of the reboot of the same show. It's like, didn't I watch this like 3 years ago? Like, okay, the names are slightly different, but and it never seems to change. And as I said, like, it does feel now like there's like a massive kind of mental block in the organization where, oh my god, we haven't been in a Super Bowl for 29 years now. Like maybe it's never going to happen type of situation, which feels weird to say about the Dallas Cowboys because you say those things about like the Washington Commanders or like the Detroit Lions or Houston, you know what I mean, or the Cleveland Browns, like the real kind of basement dwellers like the 21st century. You don't say it about the Dallas Cowboys, but that's what it feels like. So it's the
Mm.
same old story, destroy like a lot of really poor teams at home. We're contenders again. You lose a few questionable games away from home, but then it's like, don't worry, we'll be fine. You get to the playoffs, this is our best chance, and then you just fall apart when it matters most. And as I said, it's the same show, just slightly different characters involved.
Yeah.
And as I said, like it's an interesting one because like Jerry Jones stuck with Jason Garrett for a long, long time. That's the one
Yeah.
thing that
Too
kind of
long.
keeps me. That's the one thing that kind of feel like any other team or like with the stature of the Cowboys, so like if that was the Packers or the Giants or like one of those kind of storied franchises,
Yeah.
they would have fired the head coach today. I'm pretty convinced of it. The fact that like he's still there and Jerry Jones said yesterday, I'm not sure when we'll meet. I don't know. It just like as I said, like he stuck by Jason Garrett for so long. It always makes me think maybe he'll just bring him back.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like Jason Garrett was there for so long, and like even he would probably say, "I probably stayed there 2 or 3 seasons too long." Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, he was never going to walk away from the job. I understand that bit, but like
Yeah.
like 'cause, like why would you like risk
Why
like
would
losing the
you? Yeah.
payoff? You know what I mean? So like I get it from his perspective, but that's the one thing that kind of like it's just that niggling doubt in my back of my mind that I'm thinking, yeah, but Jerry Jones is like really strange. Like he might just bring everyone back. Do you know what I mean? And just say like, well,
Maybe.
yeah, like so
They're
I
not
don't know.
miles away though, They're not
They're
they're
not.
not
That's the
miles
thing.
away.
It's just like it's the thing is when you lose like that, they'll feel like they're miles away, and because
Yeah, true.
they'll
Yeah.
think, well, hang on, like Carolina scored 30 against the Green Bay Packers. Like Carolina arguably should have beaten Green Bay like 6 weeks
Mm,
ago. Tampa went
mm.
to Lambeau Field and won there. Like Packers are a really good story and they're an exciting offense, but again, like the Cowboys shouldn't be losing that badly to them. And
No.
so like they'll think, well, like could you imagine if we had to go to San Francisco? Like they would have destroyed us again. Like I think that's become like their white whale. It's that for as long as the 49ers are really good, the Cowboys can't go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's again going to be, like I said before, another off season of soul searching. It's going to be interesting what goes on. But like you say, when we come here in 12 months' time, we'll probably still be reliving that meme that you're putting up there.
Yeah.
We said we'd move on into talking about today's games. We won't talk about the Bills Steelers game. I don't know if you've seen it as we've kind of been talking, but the Bills are already
7-0.
winning
Yeah.
14-0
14-0 now, is it?
with just over 3 minutes left of the first quarter. Mason Rudolph's completed 2 passes, and Najee Harris has got 4 carries for 9 yards. So the Bills are going to win. That's kind of nailed on.
Very,
We've
very
needed.
fitting though. Like that's a Matt Canada like kind of stat line, and the weather, considering in Buffalo's been kind of Canadian style weather.
Very good. Yeah, very good. So then, lastly, just give us a shout out. Who are you gonna go for between the Bucks and the Eagles? Then both myself and Thomas predicted this last week. I went Eagles, he went Bucks. So you've got kind of deciding vote on this one.
I'm gonna go Bucks. I'm gonna go Bucks. I just
Controversial.
like no AJ Brown. I
Oh
don't know
yeah,
how
true,
much.
true.
Yeah, like I don't know how much Jalen Hurts has trained this week, considering the finger kind of got destroyed against the Giants. What I would say, like for all the talk of like the other games, I don't think there's more pressure on a team than the Eagles in this entire round.
Yeah, big time.
When you think 10-1, staring at another NFC Championship, potentially getting back to the Super Bowl, and for it to be like 1 win out of the last 7, like it's just like that's an insane kind of collapse. And I
Drop
feel
off,
like
right? Yeah.
yeah, like it's one of them where had Sirianni not got to the Super Bowl last season, I think if they lost tonight, he'd be out of a job.
Could be on the hot seat for sure.
I think
Yeah.
massively. I certainly think the coordinators are probably going to go. I'm pretty sure Matt Patricia's done. Like if this is the end, yeah, like you could do a whole pod about that decision and kind of how late, and then asking them to change like week 16. It's already hard doing stuff in the preseason because it's so limited. You're asking a defense to change in like the 14th and 15th week of the season. I don't know how you expect that to go
Impossible.
well.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, like
impossible.
you're just not going to do it. Like considering everyone's hurt, the kind of training times are so restricted. It's just not going to like work in any way, shape, or form. But I think tonight's massive for the Eagles because like also could be the end of like some careers. Jason Kelsey hinted at retirement. Lane Johnson hinted at retirement. James Bradbury's probably near in the end. I don't know how long Darius Slay's got left in Philadelphia, so it feels like that team could be coming to an end pretty
That
soon.
version of the Eagles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that version of the Eagles. And part of me hopes Bucks win just because I always felt like Baker got a raw deal in Cleveland, considering like he played with a torn labrum. It's hard enough throwing a football as it is, but like you got a torn labrum, that can be difficult. Do you know what I mean? So like I always felt like he got a little bit of a shitty deal there. And so for him to like bet on himself, take a kind of cheapish contract, and kind of play pretty well, like I think he's earned himself the job next year.
Yeah, that's very fair.
Like I think he'll be back there as quarterback number 1 next season. So like for him, it'd be cool to see him win. But I think like the pressure on Philadelphia is just massive tonight.
Yeah, no, it's a great shout. It's a really good shout, and like especially with the background stories, coaching, and how much we have talked about the Eagles as well as everyone else. Written and verbal with the pod and with the articles that we've done and things like that.
Yeah,
there's a lot on the line. There's a lot on the line. I think they'll still manage to do it, but a little bit like the Chiefs, maybe in the fact that they're maybe too flawed at this point. They'll can't go and win the Super Bowl, which again could raise its own questions for Nick Sirianni and all the other coaches that you mentioned. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that we've got for everyone today. As always, go over to touchdown.co.uk. Go and read all of our articles. There'll be no 5 wide from Willow this week, but there'll be everything else that we usually put up there, winners and losers, and also the all-star teams and everything else that Reese does, as well as all the other content that we'll be doing. We'll be moving towards obviously more draft content in a few weeks as well, so keep your eyes open for that one. So yeah, like and subscribe here on YouTube, and that is about it for everyone. So yeah, Dave, my man, thank you very much for joining us. I was really looking forward to chatting with you about the Lions in particular, and it turned out a treat. So yeah, like I said, thanks everyone for watching, and yeah, we'll see you next time.